Today, I will be explaining how the naturalization process in the US works, and I will also be answering the most frequently asked questions about the N400 form. I will also share a very recent USCIS policy update on how good moral and character is evaluated in naturalization cases. If you don't know me, my name is Remzi Kulen. I have been an immigration attorney for more than 20 years, helping people achieve their American dream. Who can apply for naturalization? How long does the process take? What is the interview like? What has recently changed about good moral and character? You will find all of these in this video. Let's get started. Who can apply for naturalization or who can fill out an N400 form? To apply for US citizenship, you must first be a green card holder. If you're not married to a US citizen and that's not how you got your green card, you must have lived continuously in the US for at least 5 years with your green card in order to apply for naturalization. However, if you have obtained your green card through marriage to a US citizen, you are still married to your US citizen spouse, this period is reduced from 5 years to 3 years as long as you are still married and living together. So in marriage with the US citizen cases, the continuous living period is 3 years. In all other cases, it's 5 years. What does continuous residency mean? If you were absent from the US for more than 180 days in a single trip during these 5 years or 3 years, your continuous residency may be considered broken. You will then need to prove that your absence during that time should not be treated as breaking residency. Aside from continuous residency, where you need to be present in the US for 5 years or 3 years if you're married to a US citizen, there is a physical presence requirement. Physical presence is the actual time you spend in the US. For the 5-year continuous rule, you must have spent at least 2.5 years or 30 months physically inside the US. For the 3-year rule, which is marriage to a US citizen, you need to spend at least 1.5 years or 18 months inside the US. In order to clarify the continuous residence and physical residence one more time, continuous residence is the time since you got your green card, which is 5 years in all cases, 3 years if you are married to a US citizen, and physical presence is when you're actually within the US. In the 5-year continuous residency, this is 2.5 years. In the 3-year continuous residence rule, where you are married to a US citizen, the physical presence requirement is 1.5 years. If you are a green card holder and if you would like to apply for naturalization, you also need to be careful about your trips out of US. Because if you were absent from the US for more than 180 days in a single trip, your continuous residency may be considered broken. You will then need to prove that your absence should not be treated as breaking residency. My recommendation for green card holders who would like to apply in the future for naturalization is keep your trips out of US under 180 days, and if you need to travel for more than 180 days, make sure you talk to an immigration attorney to see how you can prove your ties to US during the time you spend out of US. Things like keeping a job, maintaining a home, maintaining a car, having bank accounts, having children in the US, having a spouse in the US may help you proving that you did not break your residency during that trip, which took more than 180 days. There is also the Selective Service requirement. If you are a male applicant who lived in the US between the ages of 18 and 26 with a green card, you are then required to register with the Selective Service. It is important that this Selective Service requirement applies to green card holders who were in the US between the ages of 18 and 26. Failing to register can affect your application, though you may provide an explanation in some cases. In the naturalization interview, you need to take an English and Civics test. Applicants must pass the English and Civics test. I will talk more about this in detail a little later. I want to also talk about some medical exemptions. If you cannot take the tests due to a physical, developmental, or mental disability, a doctor can complete a Form N648 to request an exemption from English and Civics tests. These medical conditions might be related to a physical disability or a mental disability or a psychological condition. There is also age-based exemptions in Civics and English test requirements. The first rule is called 50-20 rule. If you are 50 years or older and have lived as a green card holder for more than 20 years, you are exempt from the English test but must take the Civics test in your native language. The 55-15 rule is similar. If you are more than 55 years of age and have lived as a green card holder for more than 15 years, you are exempt from the English test and can take the civics test in your native language. Then there is the 65-20 rule. If you are over 65 years of age and have been a green card holder for more than 20 years, you are exempt from the English test and you receive a simplified civics test. This is usually a civics test in your native language. All naturalization applications must prove that they have no criminal record barring them from applying for naturalization, and they have good moral and character. Not every criminal record automatically disqualifies you. Minor issues like a single traffic ticket usually do not affect your application, while serious crimes such as aggravated felonies, drug trafficking, or fraud are permanent bars. But good moral and character is not only about avoiding crimes, it's about the overall picture of your life, and that's where the new USCIS policy comes in. Up until now, good moral and character meant that you did not do anything bad in the qualifying 5 years that you count for applying for naturalization. USCIS has issued a new policy memorandum in 2025, changing how officers evaluate good moral and character on August 15, 2025. Instead of only checking for the absence of disqualifying conduct, officers must now take a holistic approach, weighing both negative and positive factors. What does that mean? Applicants are expected not just to avoid criminal or unlawful behavior, but also demonstrate positive contributions such as community involvement, education, caregiving responsibilities, stable work history, and tax compliance. The permanent and conditional bars remain unchanged, but officers now have more discretion. Supporters to this rule say this shows a fuller picture of an applicant's life, while critics warn it could bring subjectivity in applications. So applicants should be ready to show evidence of their positive impact in the community, and if they have past issues, proof of rehabilitation. Since this memorandum of good moral and character is pretty new, we don't know how it's going to apply in the real world. But we will continue monitoring the situation, and I will give you more updates in the future videos. So let's talk about how you can apply for naturalization or N400. You can apply online through the USCIS website or by mail. Although I always recommend applying for naturalization with the assistance of an experienced immigration attorney. You need to complete the N400 form fully, attach all the required documents, and pay the fee. You need to make sure that your tax returns are in order, as USCIS often checks this. If you have children and if you are divorced, providing proof of child support is strongly recommended, even if you don't have legal custody. Don't forget, even if you don't have the legal custody, you still have a responsibility to take care of your child and to support your child. This shows responsibility and good moral character. After applying for naturalization, you will be scheduled for a biometrics appointment where fingerprints and photos are taken. Incomplete or incorrect documents can delay your application, or it may result in denial. How long does the process take for you to get the naturalization interview? On average, processing times range between 8 to 12 months, but currently in our own cases, we've been getting results in about 5 months on average. This time frame can vary depending on the state where you apply and the USCIS office you're assigned to. After the pandemic, some regions have seen longer wait times, but now we're seeing those waiting times to be reduced, and we can even get some appointments in 3 to 4 months. You can always track your case online using your application receipt number. Another important thing to remember while applying for naturalization is you need to be a resident of that state for at least 3 months before applying for naturalization. This is important because USCIS doesn't want you to do a forum shopping while applying for naturalization. If you're moving from one state to another, it is important that you wait for at least 3 months to be a resident in that state and then file your naturalization application. So let's talk about what happens during the citizenship interview. The interview basically consists of 3 main parts. The first part is going over the N400 forms. The second part is the English test, and the third part is the civics test. While going over the forms, the officer will ask you the questions on the forms and will confirm that all the information in the forms is correct. If you have provided wrong information and then you realize it before the interview, or if there are things that need to be updated on the form, now is the time to update them, and the officer will update the form according to your responses. The second part is the English test. This assesses your ability to read, write, and speak in English. The speaking part is ongoing when you are actually talking about the forms, because the questions the officer asks and the answers you provide proves that you can understand and speak English. Reading and writing part is a little different. You generally have an iPad in front of you during the interview. There's a question on the iPad. They ask you to read that question or that sentence, and you read it, then the reading test is done, and then they want you to write something on the iPad, and then you write it, and that's the end of the English test. These questions are usually at an elementary school level, so there is nothing to worry about if you can write and read and understand English properly. As we were getting ready to post my video about the naturalization application, USCIS just came up with the new test for naturalization application. This is a major update for naturalization applicants, and I want to make sure you have the latest information. USCIS has announced a new civics test that will take effect on October 20, 2025. This means that anyone filing a Form N400 on or after that date will be required to take the updated 2025 version of the test. The new test includes 128 questions compared to 100 questions in the 2008 version of the test. Most applicants will be asked up to 20 questions, and you must answer at least 12 correctly to pass. The test ends once you reach 12 correct answers. If you reach 9 incorrect answers, the test will also end, and unfortunately, you won't pass the test. For applicants who are 65 or older and have been permanent residents for at least 20 years, the requirement is reduced to 10 questions, and only 6 correct answers are needed to pass. These applicants may also take the test in their native language. The English reading, writing, and speaking portions remain unchanged. USCIS has already published the updated set of 128 questions and answers for preparation, so it's important to use this new material when studying. One important note: if you file your application before October 2025, you will still take the 2008 version of the test. That makes the timing of your application especially important. If you pass your interview and USCIS approves your application, the final step is the Oath of Allegiance ceremony. This is where you take the Oath of Allegiance and you become a US citizen and receive your naturalization certificate. So what can you do after you become naturalized? Once you are a US citizen, you gain important benefits and rights. One of the biggest is the ability to sponsor some of your family members. For example, your spouse, unmarried children under 21, and parents are considered immediate family members, and you can apply and get green cards for them without a restriction. For some other relatives, such as children over 21 or your brothers or sisters, these are called preference categories, and there's a wait time for you to be able to get a green card for them. But you need to apply for them immediately to get in the line. Application by a US citizen for their immediate family member is often faster and more straightforward than other immigration categories. One of the questions I get the most is, can you travel abroad while the naturalization application is pending? I filed for naturalization, I'm waiting for my interview, can I travel? Yes, you can, but there are important points to keep in mind. Trips abroad longer than 6 months can cause problems for your citizenship application, so make sure to keep your trip under 6 months. Moreover, being absent for over a year can reset your residency requirement. That's why I recommend avoiding long trips until your application is finalized. There's also another problem. If you get your naturalization interview, they usually let you know 2 to 4 weeks before the interview date. So if you have the interview date but you're still on your trip, you need to probably cut your trip short and come to the US immediately. So be aware that you may have to cut your trip short and come to the US as soon as possible for your naturalization interview. There are ways to postpone your interview, saying that you are out of the United States, but we usually don't recommend them. Once you request a rescheduling on your interview, you generally don't know how long it's going to take for USCIS to reschedule your appointment. So it may delay the process. In some instances, we see that the naturalization applications are denied. So what happens if your naturalization application is denied? USCIS may deny your application for several reasons. For example, providing incorrect information, criminal record issues, not meeting the residency requirements, for example, taking trips for more than 180 days and not being able to prove your ties to the US during that time. If denied, you have the right to appeal or reapply after a certain period. At this stage, getting help from an experienced immigration attorney can make the process much smoother. So let me quickly summarize my recommendations. Prepare all your documents completely. Make sure you are eligible for the naturalization application and there is nothing you need to address before filing. Practice for your interview in advance. Be careful with your travel plans. and make sure to follow all USCIS notifications throughout the process. I hope this video has answered at least some of your questions about the N400 application. If you have more questions that you think I didn't address, please feel free to leave a comment or contact us directly. I will respond to those comments as much as I can. And don't forget to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and turn on notifications. See you in the next video.